And my habilitation is mainly about technology or innovation regulation, and deals specifically with quantum, but of course from a political science perspective, which is quite different to probably any kind of technology assessment or law assessment for technology. But as you can see, that's really an interdisciplinary field, and I'm a bit into technology, I'm a bit into law, I'm a bit into economy and political science. So it's like a mixture of very different perspectives that we need to uphold to understand the scenery. Yeah, and today I'm here because I want to talk with you about technology regulation. That is a very broad field, and regulation is not necessarily law, but it's somehow something that rules us or has an effect on us that can be defined by a government, but it can also be defined by a technology itself. So there comes a lot of ideas to it, and I will give you some insights and perspectives about this. So the main question is, why do we regulate? Like, what is regulation and why do we regulate at all? We could just develop devices and just use them. And we could say, okay, we only do ethics by design or other means of technology development, so that we do not necessarily need any kind of regulation. We are using within the Quantum Humanities Network and also within the Equal a model that has been developed by Acatech. Acatech is a research body and actually its own technical actor in the field, who is researching what technology means and how technology interacts with society. So we have this kind of like very complex picture here, and I will explain it shortly. So if a new device is coming, it has somehow an impact on various fields of society, but also normally on the individual. So we have, for instance, the need to have protocols and standards. Why? Because if I want to buy a product, I want to know what's inside, right? If you want to buy a personal computer, you want to know what it can do. So that's standardized. And if you want to buy a printer, it needs to actually be able to print on the paper sheets that are there. So the printer is regulated because it is under a DIN norm or other norms, so that I know I can use it for various things, and they are defined. And that gives me some kind of knowledge about general expectations that I have towards a product or towards a technology and its design. For instance, I will not, or it would be out of the box if a printer uses water and I need a water supply for my printer. That would be totally something I do not expect, and it would be problematic for me. And it's against the regulation because we want to have specified expectations to a consumer, but also to product developers. Like, they need to know what they can produce and what is out of the line of this technology. Or they change the standards that they can do. They can go into standard bodies and ask for several changes. But then also my expectations will change through a standard. So I'm already regulated by a standard when I go into a shop and I have the idea to buy something. It's already there. I'm already regulated. I'm on one hand regulated by the technology, because the technology is developed. It could have been developed in a different path, and I had different expectations. I had different awarenesses about my product. And this is already some kind of form of regulation that is there. It's the regulation of my expectation. We have also different communities within the technology society, so to say. So there's, for instance, data providers. And these data providers need to know what is a data. Yeah, that's the first question. What is data? What kind of rules go to data? How can I use data? How can I collect data? So there's a lot of regulations already on them as well, much more than me as a consumer. I'm not as regulated in this case, but the data provider is. For instance, can he trace me? Can he use my personal data? Is he allowed to breach into my files concerning, I don't know, a very private issue about health or something? Can he do that? Is he allowed to do that? So there's a lot of regulations already to the providers of certain data. And also to the technology provider. I told you the example of the printer, but this goes also, of course, to very new technology. For instance, for hardware coming to the analog system of a quantum computer. It's in the development phase right now, and we already have some regulations on it, even though the technology itself, the computer, is not existent yet. So there's already some kind of path dependency in it. So they know, okay, I can maybe produce a quantum computer, but there is the expectation that it can do this or that it even uses quantum, right? So if we look, for instance, at a photonic computer, is that a quantum computer or is it not? It's like kind of like in the line, if you ask the experts in the lab, they will say, no, it's not a quantum computer. If you ask policymakers, they will say, of course, that's a quantum computer. That's a real quantum computer and we can use it. And that even goes to quantum simulations. Yeah. Some policymakers think that devices for quantum simulations are real quantum devices. So we have this very different look upon the provider, and that also has some effects on the political scene and on them. So there's like this touchy point where different expectations or different thinking or different knowledge comes together. It's not entirely wrong to say a photonic computer is a quantum computer because it's dependent on light. You could argue that it is a quantum computer, but you can, of course, not do that to any kind of developer because he will say that's not the case. We are not entirely calculating with a quantum. Not true. So there's different knowledges that come together when it comes to hardware regulation, which is quite interesting because the different parts of the communication societies, like the politicians, the technicians, the users, they all have those different kind of knowledge fields that come together. So a user will think, okay, you're building a quantum computer. Does that mean we will end up in the metaverse? And the metaverse in the quantum world is a very different university, right? And if you look at constructor theory or things like that, and he might expect something totally different than what we have. And this also has a touchy point to the technology provider, because what can he actually expect the society to ask for? They ask for a lot. They want to enter new universes. They think you can change time already, so I want to go back in time. Yeah, they have produced something with it, but it's like very, very far away and totally a speculation. So the hardware providers are constantly raising expectations with very small steps of development, which is quite interesting. And the communication society is a society that is mainly driven by some form of social ideologies, which means they're connected to what we call socio-technical imaginaries. So they see a device and they think this means we will cure cancer forever in 5 years. They see a device and they think, oh, okay, that means we can actually solve societal problems like homelessness or violence or any kind of other things because they believe that technology will solve human problems. Yeah, that's one of the main expectations of the society, and that's also a main expectation actually from politicians. So they invest a lot of money into it because they think it will solve a lot of problems. Any kind of technology is solving problems, and that's actually a socio-technical imaginary, because the device is the device. It does not do anything. We do something with the device, right? It also touches, of course, then laws and regulations. If we have a quantum computer, wouldn't it be good to have post-quantum encryption made available for everybody? Or wouldn't it be good to actually make our ministries only use quantum communications for security reasons? Or is it not better not to sell any kind of quantum computing products to China, because they are a different system and they're a different competitor in the system and they could use it against us? So we might better lower their progress, right? Or do we actually want to have regulations that we cannot buy Chinese products and bring them into the lab? Yeah. So, for instance, coming to training and competence, which was very interesting, I went to the University of Stuttgart, and they are actually researching the quantum computer, and they bought an American machine for that, any kind of American machine that's in the lab. And they needed to sign a contract that they are not allowed to let enter Chinese and Indian students, because the American company did not allow that. That is private regulation. It's in the contract. They can do that. They do that for a reason that it lies in America. And now the regulation that is in the USA came into a lab in Stuttgart at the university. So different expectations and procedures happen in here that are, so to say, a vast amount of change. Yeah. And all of this is connected to devices. So the device produces changes and we produce changes to the device. And this is a main interest that we should have. Like, what do devices do? Do they do something at all? What do we do with the device? And so we already have very different regulations, but actually, should we regulate something, for instance, quantum, that isn't even there? It does not only change something that is in society, but it also changes our daily behavior. Any kind of device could do that. I give you an example. I call this a body device. Why? Because most people take that and bring that to bed. They sleep with it at the side of the bed. When they wake up in the morning, they bring that to the bathroom with them. Then they bring that to the kitchen with them. And maybe they're dependent to constantly look at its screen or not. So it's kind of like a body device. I like to think it's my left leg. And for some people, it is the left leg and the left hand. And for some people, that is also a way to communicate only. Like, I have seen a lot of times very young people, they sit together in a cafe, but they actually do not communicate with each other directly. They communicate via instant messaging or other means. Yeah. So our daily behavior has totally changed with this. This has regulated us on our daily basis. We, of course, decided to take it with us to the bathroom. We decided to take it with us to the kitchen. We decided that we ignore the kid that is hungry and rather went to play a game or do something else. And so partly this is our decision, but we are not aware. We feel that we are somehow dragged to this, right? So what technology does is it is not neutral to us. It isn't, because of the design of it. Yeah, there's regulation in the design. Because if you look before, not so much has changed, Mainly what you can do with it is to call somebody. But when I called somebody before, I had to walk to a place, maybe a public place. I had to wait there because my 5 neighbors were there. It was really nice because one of the neighbors I knew. I talked to them before I phoned my friend. Then I did not have enough money. I needed to say, okay, we need to connect. In 20 minutes, I will be there. And I either was there and that person was there as well, or the communication did not happen anymore. Now I can call and say, you know what, I will be 15 minutes late. I will also not talk to my neighbor because I have the device here. There's no necessarily a meeting point for me anymore. Also, there's no need to talk too much to my neighbors because I have global friends, right? So what it does is that it regulates our behavior. It regulates our relations. It regulates society. And it regulates the daily proceedings within a society. So it should be, at least at some point, an idea to have several regulations on it. To make it clear, not every kind of action that I do or every kind of relation that I undertake needs to be regulated. That's out of bounds, right? We do not want to be regulated all the time. But there is rooms of possibility that every device develops. And with those rooms of possibilities, also new actors appear, right? If we did not have the digital world, maybe we did not have Facebook. Maybe we did not have the problem with fake news or anything. It would not be there. So there's room. Somebody invented, we could, do a playbook for the university and we can collect all the hot babes and give information about them and we can contact them. And later on, we could do that for the whole world, that would be nice. So there's rooms of possibilities within any kind of technology, and it is sometimes out of the box. Somebody develops something that never was thought before, and sometimes we have like incremental innovations. We want to go somewhere and we do that step by step, like for instance with a quantum computer. It's development that is made by governments. And here you can see that public law is only a very small part of technology regulation, and it might not be the most important one. I would guess for me it's the design of the technology that is the most important point of regulation towards humans. What technology does is that it develops like socio-technical functional rooms. It does that by the use, by the deployment. It does that also when we need to build infrastructure on it. So there's very indirect ways where we have this socio-technical functional system. I give you another example. That's the sink. The sink that you use in a bathroom or in the kitchen, you might not regard that as technology, but it's really a technology that has changed the world because a lot of people stop to be sick. They have fresh water supply. We have an idea that water can be waste and that we can have good water and bad water. And we saved a lot of time because there was this big machinery, you could say, water supply. So any kind of technology innovation can change to the better, or it saves us time, it saves us other things. So, and what it does is also it connects us to political order. Why? If we do not get too much sick, then maybe we can change the way we deploy the society with hospitals. we can maybe save up some money curing cancer if the quantum computer really can develop cancer treatments. It could be. You cannot say it. The industry says it will do it. We do not have a quantum computer, but when we have it, then we will do that, and cancer will be treatable. And it might be that you have an individual form of medicine. So I do not need a medical plan anymore, and all the regulators for medical plans are not needed anymore. Or we need more because we need individual plans. It could be the opposite, yeah. What it also does is it connects to political constellations. So we have parties that are totally against technology development. They want to draw that back a bit, or they want to have that in a certain direction, yeah. Okay, we can have technology, but we use DARPA for it, and DARPA is connected to our military scenery, and that might make more sense if we always start our technology development within a military organization or within the organization of science in a military field. Yeah, and if you are a researcher in the US and you're researching quantum, you will end up to connect yourself to the military, because otherwise you will not get funded. That's a fact. In certain other areas, if you live in Thuringia, there's a law that you are not allowed to cooperate at all with military. So if you want to develop a device, you cannot connect to them. It's against the law. You cannot talk to them, you cannot share your views. Different scenery, right? So that means that the arenas of conflict have changed, and they have changed into a global conflict. What does that mean? A lot of times technologies will be connected to political systems today. So we have the internet is regulated, it is used by bad actors, and those bad actors are normally described as systems that are in conflict with us. So yeah. And can we actually give access to this kind of technologies to the Iranians? Or do we need to deploy very different forms of technology so that the Iranians can still free speak on a different technology level, right? So what the Chaos Computer Club deployed them once, I think, when the Iranian Revolution, the second revolution started. Chaos Computer Club has allowed them to enter the internet and communicate freely, not within the regulated internet. So there's always a conflict, and that is on a systems level. Yeah. How products will be developed or designed can be connected to political targets. Yeah. Do I want a backdoor in this always? Do I want a backdoor for my technology? Do you have to secretly sign a contract? You all remember a young man that has deployed us with knowledge in 2013 about that Microsoft had to sign that, and it was the first company that had to do that. So there was a backdoor in every kind of Microsoft product. Or do I want, for instance, a quantum sensor that can maybe detect gold for gold digging, but it should be designed in a way that it cannot be taken and put into a tank? Maybe I want this kind of regulation within my technology. And this is up to political strategy. Yeah? I can put my devices under a military or security idea. I can put my devices under an economic idea. Yeah, I want to have the best technology that's used everywhere. And I will finance, for instance, I will develop a finance structure so that you can deploy other countries with this technology, because I know my regulations that I have developed within this technology will become actual in another country. I already have my back door in those other countries if I can manage to deploy other countries on a great scale with my technology. So it's interesting, right? Who is actually regulating and who plays a role? Like innovation governance has one of the main features is that it is only a meta frame. So a lot of actors come into this. This is not one actor. We do not go only to the Ministry of Education and Science to develop technology or regulate it. It is a meta frame, which means that the innovation process has different phases, and those phases will be regulated by very different bodies. And that means that the normal concept of policy science, policy science, is broken. So the political scientist has a problem here because the whole arena does not work anymore. And we normally work with an arena that is a clear set of actors, and we work with a process that is called a policy cycle, and that happens within Parliament, right? So we have an entrance start point that is normally a window of opportunity. We have some politicians that are interested in stuff. They ask normally the technology providers, oh, what's this about? And give me some information about it. And they ask certain social groups, maybe Amnesty International, there's others, there's like so many. They can deploy a whole list of this, and they will ask them, what can we do, right? What is this about? But all of this happens in Parliament or is connected to Parliament. And this is here somehow not the case. So the whole structure that we normally work with is not working. And I give you an example of this. So we have this innovation policy, but it's justice policy, it's international relations, it is defense, it is economics, it is security, it is infrastructure. Like there are so many regulating bodies in it that the whole thing becomes blurred, right? We do not really know how it really works. So innovation policy is a form of policy that is really, really hard to observe. And I go further into it. So here I have developed this picture of success of an innovation company. There's normally a wedge between innovation and exploitation. So any kind of innovation company will try to find out enabling technologies. So they will try to find something that is new, that is out of the box, and they will try to develop it then and develop a market strategy. And then with this market strategy, they go into communication and end user technologies. So that's normally a process. The main problem is that regulating the enabling technologies is a very different regulating body than regulating the end user technology. So only on the devices, that's very different. But we also have this development phase, and here we have market failure in it, right? Normally, the people are not waiting for a new technology. We always have market failure, especially when there's long-term development. Like in quantum, we can see that it might be in 10 years or in 15 years, there will be something that we can use. Maybe not with a photonic computer, they can maybe deployed for Landesrechenzentren in the near future, 1-2 years. But somebody needs to pay for that. And that is us. Yeah, it's not anybody else, it is us. We pay that for tax money. That's our tax money, it goes into this. So what companies normally do is they go to some kind of government body and ask them to buy demonstrators. That's the whole thing. And they are very expensive. And for some companies, it's even not interesting to develop end-user technology. For some, it will be only the demonstrator and then they sell. So they have a very different and very unique feature in them. And for all of this, very different government bodies are relevant, and normally they don't talk to each other, or they fight. Yeah. For instance, the development of the third-party funding scheme in Germany that was with 2 billion deployed, with $2 billion or euros of the taxpayers, they did not ever get, this did not ever get to life because the Ministry of Economics and the Ministry of Science had a fight. And they had a fight for only 2 years. They were sending papers back and forth. Everybody was waiting and waiting and waiting. And then somehow we saw a very interesting development, and that was the Munich quantum scenario. Because the Landesregierung had then decided, you take too long, we will do that on our own. We will take our own money. You know? And we do not wait for the federals to do that because they're in a fight and we need some decisions. So we ended up with an interesting funding scheme because all the lands, all the countries did their own funding scheme in between, because the feds did not work out really well with their plannings, so to say. So every phase of technology regulation has governance processes in it and government processes. So a government is the ministries. The governance, that is companies in it, there's scientists in it, there's like so many different research bodies, and also at some point, but normally at a very late stage, the civil society. So mainly what happens is the companies and the government work together and develop planning schemes for technology development. And when everything is decided, they ask to comment on this for the civil society. So they are allowed to comment, but normally this will be discussed also. That's a guarantee that it will be discussed, but normally the decisions will not be changed. So here is processes that are underlaid in the ministries, and why that happens is that governments do not understand the technology. They do not know what a quantum computer. They think a photonic computer is a quantum computer. They think we will somehow develop a laser machinery for our jets, and we will somehow shoot with this beautiful laser. So they're not knowledged, yeah. And they normally do not need to, because they have the information from the companies, and the companies have an interest to be truthful and give them the information. And it will not be one company, but several. And we have this, for instance, for quantum. We can see the process that the architect was the first body that told the government, oh, we should have a quantum scheme to finance, and it should be at least 2 billion. Guess how much the quantum is now? It's 2 billion. And what they did was they wrote a small paper. You can see it's the yellow one actually here. They wrote this small paper. This is the one that is published, and there's one internal one that gives you more information about strategies, political realities of competing countries and developments within other countries. So that's very specific. And who is in Akatech actually? Like, interestingly, the leader of Akatech, the former president that was actually here during this process, is Reinhard Ploss. And Reinhard Ploss is in Infineon. He's the leader of Infineon. And in Akatech, interesting, it's like it's only an e.V., ein Verein. But in this Verein, if you look into it, you will realize that it's only company leaders and professors for technology. And during the Angela Merkel phase, they had the possibility to have 2 shots every year for a specific technology that should be financed. And what happened was they had this meeting, and Olaf Scholz, who is now the chancellor, had read a book. a quantum book. And he was interested because he was the finance minister then. And it was a good thing because that opened up a window of opportunity, because the former finance minister was more than 70 years old and he did not have much interest into new technologies. So he normally said no to any kind of investment. But Olaf Scholz has read this book and he said, oh, that's so cool. I want the computer. I want the quantum computer from IBM and I want to have it installed in our ministry in the center. So everybody was at first very happy that they would buy the IBM computer, but then they realized that he only wanted to have it not for usage, but for presentation reasons. So it was the whole government process in it and with architect, so that they tried to hinder this, and now it stands in Ulm, so it's actually usable. And here you can see that's also a matter like technology, and technology development is regulated by personal traits. If he did not have read this book, if he did not like the whole idea of quantum, maybe he would not have financed it. And this is a moment in time where we can say, it's like not only government and governance processes, but it's also network processes. What's flying through my network? What kind of information is in that network? And who are the persons that are in the network? So there's a lot of serendipity in it, yeah? Something that we find that we did not search for. Here you can see that the whole thing is totally plastered with programs. So the Feds have in their first program, that was the Corona program, so that was a train designed for laws, have financed 2 billion. And then the flagship decided to spend 1 billion. I think Austria has decided to spend 600 million. Then the different countries have decided to spend money. So there's a lot of governmental money in that. And this is important, as it first of all helps innovations to grow, which is good, and it can help the industries to develop. But it means also that we can have double development. For instance, I think that there is 5 or 6 research sites, and they all develop a quantum computer because in the first governmental round of money, they asked to develop a quantum computer. So they did not, think that it could be a work of a network together. So they are competing, which might be stupid. And they also did not finance software, which is also not very smart. But yeah, that happened. So we are in this development phase. There's this second phase, and that is to develop demonstrators. That is the moment when I have an enabling technology and I want to test it. I want to see if I can use my magnometer better in a hospital, or better at the police, or better at Bundesdruckerei. And I asked the governmental bodies to go into a research with me. And the research is actually to develop the demonstrator. So I give you here an example of Bundesdruckerei, and they did this, this chip together. And they somehow found that interesting because they said that might change the product line within Bundesdruckerei if we have that chip. And this is very important because here is market failure in it. So you have this enabling technology, but it needs some time actually to develop products out of this. And a lot of innovation companies do not have the money. So I give you the example of QT Labs in Austria. This is only a bunch of persons. They do not know how to finance that on their own. They need some help, right? They need to help. They have this great idea. They're a bunch of boys, so to say, but they need some time to develop something out of it and develop actually the products. So, and here also comes regulation into place, because this body, this governmental body, the Bundesdruckerei, can say what it wants. It can say my chip should have this and that feature. It should be developed in this and that time. It should be able to integrate in this and that machine. So there's a lot of ruling already in this phase. Again, Yeah, so second phase of regulation. And there is a third one, and that is the sales. That's the moment of sales. So, and here comes a vast amount of regulations in it. So we have World Trade Organization regulation. We have certain company laws. We have standards. We have patents. We have like a whole amount of regulations that are in it, and the whole thing explodes at some point. So you better be aware of what you do, right, before you develop your product. And you can see from the cradle to the grave, any kind of technology is regulated. When it starts, the idea starts until the end of the product, there's regulation in it, to different phases and to different intensities, but it is there. So they're kind of like connected in this kind of stream that consists in several layers. Like here, on the end, there's the architect idea. Hey, we could have that. And all the companies here in the black seem connected to each other. They know each other and they call each other. And they are actually in architect organized. And then they decided, we do this paper. And then step after step after step after step, we have the technology development. But in every kind of step, there's regulation. Somebody, yeah? And they do not necessarily need to talk to each other or like each other, but there will be regulation. This is my picture of it. There's interest in it. There are organized actors to various kinds. There is already existing regulation, right? I cannot develop something totally out of the box because I am in a society that has regulation already in it. I'm not starting the country anew without any kind of regulation. And we all know that we are not in an anarchistic system, so that there is no regulation, but we have heavy regulation from the start. And there's somehow a political will, like it's either organized or comes through a box that a minister has read something and finds it really neat to have that. And then there comes the magic inside and it changes the world. It might change the world, yeah, to some degree. We do not know to which one. And all these regulations create parts of the magic. Yeah, of course, mainly the innovators do. That's another truth. And you can see that. Interestingly, I give you an example for the quantum communications development in the flagship program. So what they are trying to build is a super fast and encryption secured communication, and they develop now the satellite system, and they also try out with the glass fiber, like to what kind of distances can we have it, and what is with the repeaters, what do we do. I have joined a conference in Stuttgart this week, and the BSI, the Bundesamt für Sicherheit in Informationstechnik, was there. The DLR, the Deutsche Luft- und Raumfahrt, has organized that meeting, and they asked, can't you research a bit more on a repeater? Can't you do that? And some people in the crowd were like nodding and saying, yeah, the repeater is a problem. So why satellites? The repeater first. And but it gave them an idea where governments would invest in the future, right? Because the BSI, when they say that they need the repeater urgently, somebody should develop it sooner, then they know they can open their hands and say, hey, I have here a promise for you. And they can promise pretty much anything because the governments do not know what's really in the technology. So that's a bit of a problem. So we will have the super fast and totally secured communication via satellites or glass fibers. We will have the super fast encryption secured communication. We will have a super fast computer based on qubits, and they will perform those super complex calculations. That means we will really look into nature and change nature from its start, from the quantum. And we will solve all the problems that we could not solve before. We will have those radiometers, so we will know everything about the Earth and how it's moving. We will have the magnometers, so we will actually can look soon into your brain and see your thoughts. And we will have those great superposition effects, so we can have LIDAR, and that means we are not dependent anymore on GPS, which is really nice, because then I do not need to tell anybody that my device is flying around, right? If I can kind of like organize it to know where it is perfectly, then I do not need to cooperate anymore. Could be a very nice application for some people. And then we have those great simulating quantum systems. I know that you do not think they are quantum computers, but they are quantum simulators, and that's something very different, and it's digital and it's not analog. But for the political sphere, that doesn't matter. We will have that, and we will simulate quanta. And that will also be super great, because we can control the Hilbert space at some point, which is great. So I give you an idea that all of this is not totally out of the box. We saw recently that Neuralink has developed a chip that was implanted in the brain to a patient. And this chip can like detect where in the brain an activity happens. And the chip will use that to develop movements. Oh, I will be super ready. So it will develop some kind of movements. But I found a company that is using a device, a magnometer, that can also measure those changes individually within the quantum. And they said to me, the only problem right now is that they cannot go through the bone, because the bone structure is complicated. But they are working on it, and they want to fight actually with Neuralink about it, because they say our product will be much better, because I do not need to open the brain, and I do not need to deploy a chip. And mine is really much better, because it does not only detect the region of the brain where activity happens, but it actually can see the actual activity. So it will be individual. And we do not know what kind of magic comes out of this, but it might not be totally out of the box to think that we might be able in maybe a decade to see what a person is thinking, which will be great for patients that cannot move, for instance, or cannot talk. For them, that will be a great lift of their life quality. But we will see what happens. Yeah. And thank you. I'm ready.